This video has gotten over 20,000 views since I posted it 24 hours ago, so in this video, I'm going to break down how I edited that video step by step. We're going to cover captions, cuts, LUTs, crops, sound effects, lens flares, film overlays, rounded corners, screen recordings, music, fade-ins, rotoscoping, and smooth zooms. We have a ton of things to cover in this video, so let's go through it step by step. But first, let's see what our final product is going to look like. Check it out. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you in less than 30 seconds. So right now, Instagram is prioritizing two things, that is watch time and that is shares. So to track watch time, they basically use this graph called retention. So as time goes on, how many people are still watching that video. And you can see by that graph up there, the steeper the graph, the worse the video, the flatter the graph, the better the video. So you want to keep people on your video watching for as long as you possibly can. Also, at the end of your video, tell people to share it with a friend. The Instagram CEO has literally come out and said that the most important metric right now is shares divided by reach. So if you find videos like this valuable, make sure you share it with a friend. All right, so we've opened up Premiere Pro and now we are going to input our footage. So I record my video and audio separately, so I'm going to drag those two files into the import media section. And then what I'm going to do is import or drag these clips onto my timeline. So now I have to sync up my audio and video. This section is my audio. This section right here is my video. So 1,000,000% an easier way to do this, but I just line up audio spikes on each track. So I know right here, like I start talking right here. So I'm just going to drag this over to the first section of me talking on the microphone recording track, and then this should be synced right here. Again, there's probably an easier way to do that. This is how I've been doing it for the past 3 years. So if there is, let me know in the comment section. But now I know that these two things are tracked, so let's just confirm that real quick. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick that I'm going to but now we have to separate the audio track from the camera recording. So if I click on the camera recording, you'll see that these two tracks highlight right here. Right click on unlink, and then delete the camera audio from the project, and then we can go in and sync these up later. Now I'm using the Shure SM7B microphone. This has notoriously low output. So if I right click and go to audio gain on my audio track, you'll see it's peaking at -9.7. That is super low. If you go on Instagram, like those videos probably peak above 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to 0, increase that gain by 9.7, and now everything should be good. So now we can highlight both tracks, right click and click on link, and then that will allow us to cut these videos together. So in order to cut these videos, we just have to click C on our keyboard where we first start speaking, and then hit V to delete everything prior to that. And then we can zoom back out, click on the empty space on our video track, hit backspace, and that's going to bring everything to the beginning of the clip. We can do the same for this section right here. I see my voice where it ends right there. And then I'll click on the beginning, hit C, delete the middle clip by clicking V and then clicking on the track, delete it, delete the space, it'll auto connect them. So now we've got this. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you in less than 30 seconds. So right now Instagram so we can actually clip a little bit of this at the end. Transition better. So right now Instagram is prioritizing two things, that is watch time and that is shares. So we've got that, and I'm just going to go through and quickly cut out the rest of the stuff from this video so you don't actually have to watch me do it, but you get the point. So click C, click V, delete the space and make everything, and just trim it and make it look good.
Few moments later.
Cool, so we have the entire video cut right now. This is the final version of the cut before we add any edits to it. But now we have to go in. If you go back to the original video that I showed you in the beginning, you'll notice that it has the green screen effect, which is called rotoscoping, and that is done in After Effects. So what I'm going to do is take the entire project we have right now, click on File, go to Export. We'll export this media, save it, make sure it's 4K, 24 frames a second. We're going to export this to our desktop, and then we're going to drag it into After Effects. If you've never done rotoscoping before, don't worry. I learned this 2 days ago. I'm comfortable enough now where I am able to teach you how to do it. We're going to click on New Project. We will go to the None section right here. You might see the render queue pop up on the bottom. Right click in this empty space, go to Import File, and then we're going to import the file that we just exported from Premiere. So it's YouTube Rotoscoping Tutorial. Now this is super easy to do. Ready? Watch how this works. So I'm going to drag this onto the timeline on the bottom of the screen. And then what you want to do is pick a point, usually your first frame in your video, and click on the rotoscope brush up top. It's this little person right here with this paintbrush. Click on that and then double click your file, and then you'll see this new layer pop up. So what you have to do is basically just draw over the person that you want to cut out from the background, and you'll see that it adds this pink outline to you. You just have to refine it a little bit. So if you hold Alt on your keyboard and scroll up, Same thing with Photoshop and Premiere in your timeline. This will allow you to zoom in and out. If you want to move around, you'll notice that you can't actually like move the mouse down or scroll down. It's just going to zoom back out. So if you hold space on your keyboard, you can then drag around to refine the edges. So I'm going to make sure that's selected right there. Let's get the top portion of my hat a little bit. So I actually want the chair in the background, so that's fine. But you'll notice that this section right here, I don't want, so I'm going to cut that out. So this looks pretty good right here. The reason why we start at the first frame and we do this at the first frame is because After Effects is going to take the knowledge that it has of this first frame. When we drag the effect over the entire course of the clip, it's going to take its knowledge from frame number 1 and apply it to all of the other frames in the selection. So if I drag this forward a little bit, or if I just hit spacebar, you're going to see it start to apply this to future frames. So if I just zoom in real quick, I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram, right? From experience in the past couple of days that I've been doing this, I know this is going to be a good selection. So what I'm going to do is drag this blue line to the back, the end of my clip. You'll see there are 895 frames that it has to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video right here. And then once this is rendered out, I'm going to show you how to export it as like a PNG version of a video. So we can just overlay that onto our short. And then we're going to make it look really good with some effects in Premiere. So I will zoom to the export settings right now. All right, so our selection is picked in After Effects. And then what we have to do to export this is click on File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And then you'll see this bar pop up this bar pop up on the bottom of the screen, and we're going to change where it says H.264. We're going to click on that and change our output format to QuickTime, and then our channels to RGB plus alpha. Now what this is going to do is it's going to basically mask out the background, so it's just left with like the PNG version of a photo but for a video. And we will click OK, select our output, we will put YouTube rotoscoping tutorial, we'll hit save, and then we will render it all out.
Few moments later.
And we're back in Premiere. So what I'm going to do is click on right click, import, and I will pick the file that we just exported from After Effects and then just drag that over my original footage. So I'm going to hit unlink, so it unlinks the audio and video, and then I'm going to leave a separate video file in between my original and my new one, right? So if I hide this layer, you're going to see that this is all rotoscoped out. So I'm going to bring that back to the beginning, and now we can actually start getting crazy with the edits. So if we go back to our original video, there's a few different things that pop up in the first like 5 or so seconds of the video. The first big one obviously is all of the different screenshots that pop up in the back of me, right? So I'm actually going to first import all of those screenshots into my project. So they are on my desktop, and if I go right here, I believe that is all of them. I'm not going to use all of them, but let's just pick the first one. We're going to drag and drop this in between our effects right there. And let's actually just bring it above so we can get an idea of what we're cropping. So we actually have to crop this. Basically, I just want these metrics for the video. So I'm going to go to the effects control panel, type in crop, drag and drop that onto my clip. And now if I go to effects controls, I will see crop on the left-hand side right here. Let's just drag these numbers up, drag that down, and that looks pretty good right there. So you'll notice that the edges are not smooth, right? So like these are just super sharp corners. So what I want to do is I have a preset for this, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do this without the preset. You're going to go to the effects control panel and click on or type in roughen edges, drag roughen edges over to your clip. Instead of roughen, we are going to use cut. Going to bring that border up a little bit. We're going to decrease fractal influence and then increase the edge sharpness up to 10. And now we went from that to that. And that looks pretty good. So now what we can do is actually drag that below and then place that in a new position. So we're going to use our anchor point keyframes, and we're going to put that right up there. That's a good starting point. Now we're going to add a little bit more to this, right? We're going to have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different screenshots. So if I go back to my projects library and I drag a new clip onto this, I can basically just copy the effects from this one. If I right click on copy, go over to my new screenshot, hit paste. We're going to copy motion, crop, and roughen edges. And now if we go and drag this over a little bit, move that to a different spot. Cool. And we're going to do that for a few more. That looks pretty good. So now I want these to fade in a little bit. And the easiest way to do that is to start with a Gaussian blur. So if we start and drag and drop the Gaussian blur onto our project file, little screenshot right there, and we go down to Gaussian blur, we can add a keyframe at the very beginning and crank that up to like 180-ish, and then drop the opacity down to start. So if I scroll back up to where it says opacity, drop that opacity down to 0. A few more keyframes ahead, we're gonna drop the Gaussian blur down to 0 and the opacity up to 100. So I'm picking like 10 different keyframes right there. So because that's our last one, so we can actually just copy and paste those effects as well. So if I go to copy, I click on paste, we're going to only choose opacity and Gaussian blur, drag that up a little further, do the same thing for the other clips, drag that up a little further. So now we have all of these fading in. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram, right? So it starts with the Gaussian blur, drops the opacity increases, Gaussian blur decreases, then it comes in and it's normal like that. So that looks good right there. But if we want to add a little bit of a glow effect to all of these, what I usually do is just highlight all of them, go to nest and just nest that sequence, drag that up one layer, hold Alt and drag it down to the back layer. And what we can also do here is go back to our effects, drag Gaussian blur to the top of that, and then increase that blurriness to like 75 is probably good, and then drop that opacity down to like 30. So now it's the difference between this right here and this. So it's just glowing a little bit. I think it looks pretty good. The other thing you'll notice about the original video is that it starts with a quick zoom out. Now, I have paid for these presets from a different creator, so you are not going to be able to get them from me. Sorry, I just don't feel like giving them away for free. But if I click on zoom out and I drag that onto my clip, this is from Finzar, by the way. So Finzar, Finzar. I will put a link to his online store in the description below where you can get these presets. They are worth every penny. I use them for every single video that I put out. If I drag the zoom out feature, what it's going to do is add that quick zoom out that you just saw that starts the video. I've gotten over 17. Let's try that again. My GPU wants to cooperate. I've gotten over 17 million views. There it is. Cool. We can do that for the nested sequences as well. Now we've got something that looks like that. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you. The other thing we can do is actually start the scale at 115. Yeah, we want to do the 115 on the rotoscoped video and 115 on the original video, and then drop the scale down to 100 at the very end of the clip, and then drop it down to 100 at the very end of the clip for the rotoscoped video as well. So now it looks like it's continuously zooming out. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you in less than 30 seconds. That's a good hook. Before we get into the screen recording section, different lens transitions and things like that, I want to quickly go through my sequence for adding a LUT. So I'm going to go back to my project library, actually it's this little like post-it note at the bottom right where it says new item. Add an adjustment layer, make sure it matches your sequence settings, click OK, and then drag that on top of your clip, and then that's going to be dragged out over the duration of the clip. Now I already have a LUT. I'm not going to pretend to know how to color grade. I got this from freshluts.com, and I will link them in the description below too. I guess a lot of things in the description below. Click on input LUTs. If I go to basic correction on Lumetri color, click on custom, go to desktop where I have my LUTs, and this is my LUT right here. You're gonna be like, yo, that looks crazy. That looks way too dark. We're gonna bump up the exposure, bump up the highlights, bump up the shadows, and now it's looking a little good. So I think that looks pretty good right there. I cannot believe how high my shorts are. That is crazy. No wonder the video was going nuts. There is one thing though that I will give you, and that is my film grain overlay. So I'm going to import that into my project right now. It is the 8mm cinema background loopable old film effect. I'm going to drag and drop that onto the top of my clip, unlink the audio from that, and then I'm going to bring it to the very first frame. Going to switch the rotation to 90. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. I'm going to slow it down. So if I right click on the clip, go to speed and duration, I'm going to slow it down to 47. I'm going to increase the scale just a little bit, and then maybe even drop the opacity down to 80. We're going to add captions later on. Let's go into the bulk of the content. So to go from the hook of the content to the meat of the content, I like to use a little bit of a lens flare transition. So I will also give this to you. I drag and drop this onto the top of my clip. Let's just actually pick a lens flare that we want to use first. So you'll notice that they all kind of go at the same time. This one right here, because it covers the entire screen, looks really good. So I'm going to clip this. So I'm going to hit C, clip that at the end and the beginning. And what I'm going to do is actually add a marker to the point where it covers the entire screen. So right there. So I'm going to click on the clip and click M, and that's going to add this marker that you see right there to the clip itself. Change the rotation to 90. I'm recording and I edit in 4K. So the scale will be 200. Blend mode is going to be screen. And then we can just bring that to where our transition happens and make sure that where it transitions is where the marker lines up. So now we've got this. Less than 30 seconds. So right now, right, quick transition. Looks pretty good. So now I want to show you how to add a smooth zoom to your video. And what I mean by smooth zoom, let's actually just get rid of the rotoscope on this section of the video just to quickly walk through. So if you set a scale and an anchor point on your video and you increase that to, let's just call it like 120, for example, and then we'll bring this down so I'm still centered right there. It looks pretty good. You'll see how it's just a continuous pace of the zoom from beginning to end, right? Nothing changes about the speed of the zoom itself. So right now Instagram is, right, so it's kind of like choppy in a way. So let me just play that for you again. So right now Instagram is, right, so it's like, if that makes sense, I don't know, but I'll show you the difference here. So what you want to do, let's bring out the keyframes at the end to a little bit further out and highlight all of your keyframes, right click on one of the keyframes, go to time interpolation, go to ease in, do the same thing, time interpolation, ease out. And you'll notice that there are drop downs next to scale and anchor point. If we start with scale, if you click on that drop down, you'll see this arc here, right? So right now Instagram is, that's the speed. So if I drag this endpoint all the way to the left, which is what I like to do, and I do the same thing for the anchor point. And now we just went from that type of zoom to this one. So you want this to be dragged out a little. I'm just eyeballing it right now. I do it all the time. So if I hit save, just so we don't lose that. So right now Instagram is prioritizing that looks a lot smoother. So right now Instagram is prioritizing. So it's not. So right now Instagram is prioritizing two things. That is one. That's good. So I'm going to keep those keyframes there, and then I'm going to copy the keyframes from the beginning and then set them as the endpoint. So we basically zoom out pretty quickly, right? So if I just copy and paste those there, watch time, and that is shares, right? So then it adds them back out. So let's watch this real quick. So right now Instagram is prioritizing two things. That is watch time and that is shares. Zoom out, smooth. Now, what I'm going to do is actually drag this a little bit closer. I want it synced up when I say watch time and shares. It's prioritizing two things. That is watch time and that is shares. So to track watch time, they basically use this graph called retention. So as time goes on, it's looking good. Jesus. All right. So let's actually add back our rotoscoping, and we can just copy and paste the motion from our original video onto our new one. Only get rid of all the volumes. So right now Instagram is prioritizing two things. That is watch time and that is shares. So now we're going to add watch time and shares behind me. So if I click on the text tool on the left hand side and click on watch time, if I double click the text layer, I go to text. I use Boldfinger as my font. That is totally free, and that is on dafont.com. So Boldfinger. I'm going to center that, increase the scale, center it one more time. And that looks good right there. So we're going to duplicate it. So hold Alt, click on it, drag it down. And we're going to bring that down a little bit right there. Shares, we're going to bump that up so it fits, center it, and then cool. So they're obviously here at the same time, but I want them to pop up as they are set. So I'm going to go to that section. Instagram is prioritizing two things. That is, so watch time right there, watch time, and that is shares right there. Perfect. So actually, and it is share. Probably didn't even need the rotoscope for that one, but I am going to keep them there anyway. So we can also select both of those, nest them together, bring them up, duplicate it and drag it down, and then add a Gaussian blur to give it that glow effect. Same way we did it before. So blurriness, Blend mode changed to darken. That's why I was like, where is it? So let's go back to our original, and you'll notice at this point right here, there's a graph above my head, and you're probably wondering like, all right, how did he make that? So I use a program called Miro, M-I-R-O, and I have a Wacom drawing pad. Stick with me here. So I have a pencil and this trackpad that I can use for my videos, which is it's right here. There we go. Kind of dirty, but whatever. And I can go in and I can actually draw on the board with this pencil and pen, right? So like I can click and I can write like, hello YouTube, hello YouTube. So what I did was I went and I screen recorded this while I was drawing it, so I can have it synced up in the background of the video while I'm explaining it, so there's a good visual of it, right? So to do that, I used a program called Streamlabs. I have an entire Streamlabs set up and recording in my video editing course that you can get right now. It explains how to set up Streamlabs, how to screen record, how to get the best quality from it, and how to use it in videos just like this. I already have the screen recording recorded. I'm not going to do it again. So I'm just going to import that footage onto my timeline, show you how I cropped it, how I added this lens distortion, and how I made it look really good. And hopefully you can go out and do the same for yourself. So let's hop back into Premiere. Now I've got my footage imported, so I'm going to drag and drop that onto my timeline, unlink the video and audio, decrease that scale, bring it up a little bit, and then I'm going to crop it so it looks good. So effects, go to crop. I'm going to chop it off the bottom, chop it off the top, chop it off the right, chop it off the left. Perfect. Now you can do the same thing with the corner rounding. If you want to use my preset, it is smooth edges. Type that in, drag it there. There it is. It's already done for you. Right, so I want to make sure that's centered. We're going to scale it back up a little bit, and we've got it right there. So now what I want to do is add a little bit of an effect in 3D. So you can tilt things, you can make them swivel, you can add a lens distortion. I do a combination of those two things. So if you go to lens distortion, the effect, drag that onto your clip, you can increase that distortion like so. So now it's got a little bit of that like distorted effect. I don't know. Right, so now it looks a little bit like that. And then we can add a 3D tool. So basic 3D, it's perspective, and then you'll see the options for like swivel and tilt. So if I add tilt, you can see it tilts up and down. You can make things do backflips, right? Pretty cool. So I like to keep it at about there. And then what I'm going to do is make sure I chop up the screen recording so it lines up with what I'm saying in the video. So I'm going to do that real quick.
Few moments later.
So we've got it here. Let's just play it through real quick so it makes sense. Pop that open. So to track watch time, they basically use this graph called retention. So as time goes on, how many people are still watching that video? And you can see by that graph up there, the steeper the graph, the worse the video, the flatter the graph, the better the video. So you want to keep people on your video watching for as long as you possibly can. Perfect. So we can actually nest all of these together. We are going to do the same thing we always did and drag it down to add the Gaussian blur and make it look as if it is glowing. She's glowing. There we go. Looks pretty decent. Drop the opacity down just a tiny bit. And I do want a little bit more separation between the graph and the background. So what I'm going to do is go to my footage that's already selected right here, go to lumetri color and drop that exposure down to about -1.4, and then I'm just going to copy and paste that to my other clips where this graph is above it. So if I add color, shares. So to track watch time, they basically use this graph called retention. So as time goes on, how many people are still watching that video? And you can see by that graph up there, the steeper the graph, the worse the video, the flatter the graph, the better the video. So you want to keep people on your video watching for as long as you possibly can. Cool. Now let's add another lens transition, because now we're going to go back from the graph to the talking head section. So what I just did is I clicked on my lens transition, lens flare transition, hold Alt and drag it to where you want it to go. And I want it right here. So now we've got this. So I want to also just make sure that I can hold somebody's attention a little bit longer here. So I'm going to add a little bit of a jump cut to this, and you can do that in one of two ways. You can actually just do the cut where it's just for as long as you possibly can. Also, at the end of your video, tell people to share it with a friend. You can do it that way, or you can add the zoom. Right, so if I go back and I decrease this back to 100, I can set a anchor point there. Actually, let's go back and add its 1080 1920. Let's add a keyframe there, and let's say we want to zoom to this position, right? So same thing, right? Separate these a little bit, drag them out, highlight all of them, time interpolation, ease in, ease out, and then set these scale points to that, and we got that right there. So now also at the end of your video, tell people we can make that even a little bit quicker. We could do something like this. Also at the end of your video, tell people to share it with a friend. So now I also have a section of the video where I tell people like, hey, the Instagram CEO has said so-and-so, and I do have a screen recording of that section, which I can import right here. It's basically the same section as we just did with the screen recording from Miro, but we're just using it as a little snippet. So I'm going to do it anyway, just because I think it's still valuable to kind of practice this. So I'm going to unlink that. I'm going to decrease that scale back there, drag it up. We're going to crop it just a little bit. You know what we can actually do? We can go in and we can copy the settings from the original screen recording and paste it without the crop. So now I'm going to paste it right there. No crop, roughen edges. And we can bump that scale down just a little bit. We can get rid of the lens distortion. There we go. And I think that looks pretty decent right there. Able to share it with a friend. The Instagram CEO has literally come out and said that the most important metric right now is shares divided by reach. We can cut that, can cut that. Now we're going to add one more little zoom here. Do the same thing. Time interpolation, ease in, time interpolation, ease out. Drag that out a little bit. Make sure those are lined up. So if you find videos like this valuable, make sure you share it with a friend. Perfect. All right, now let's watch this from start to finish, see if there's anything that we should add or should not add. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you in less than 30 seconds. So right now, Instagram is prioritizing two things, that is watch time and that is shares. So to track watch time, they basically use this graph called retention. So as time goes on, how many people are still watching that video. And you can see by that graph up there, the steeper the graph, the worse the video, the flatter the graph, the better the video. So you want to keep people on your video watching for as long as you possibly can. Also, at the end of your video, tell people to share it with a friend. The Instagram CEO has literally come out and said that the most important metric right now is shares divided by reach. So if you find videos like this valuable, make sure you share it with a friend. I mean, that looks pretty good. So we're missing a few things here. The first thing is the captions. Second thing is sound effects. Third thing is music. We're going to do that all right now. So if we go to the text panel and we go to transcript, you're going to see that we have the opportunity to transcribe two selected clips. Just hit transcribe. Now what that's going to do is it is going to create the transcript of the video. So you'll notice that there are different points of the video where it just doesn't pick up words that you say. Usually it's not the very first word you say, so I have to add the word I've. But once you go through and you edit your captions and your transcript, click on create captions, click the drop down, bring this maximum length in characters down to about 10, hit single, and then create captions. So if we go to the first selection of captions that we've got right here where it says I've, if I go to bold finger, which is my font, and I click on this zone right here for centering and I drag this to the right, it's going to put it about a third of the way down is what I like to do with my captions. All right, so I've got one word, I keep it about 70, and then my shadow is actually going to be white. So shadow, I'm going to check off and make that white. If my font is white, I'm going to increase that size and blurriness, and then I'm going to drag the opacity down to about 33. So it looks like it's glowing a little bit, right? Now you'll notice that the very next caption we have is not formatted properly. So what we have to do is go to track style, click on create style. I just type in caps, and now everything should be the same format. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you in less than 30 seconds. I mean, that was pretty good. So right now, Instagram is prioritizing two things, that is watch time and that is shares. So now we just need some more sound effects, right? So what I like to do, I use a program called Artlist. Not a program, it's a website. And you can just grab like whip sound effects, whoosh sound effects. I use whip, whoosh, and whoosh. This I think is like $130 for the year, or like some pricing per month. I just pay for the year. It protects you from all copyright. I use sound effects in videos and music in videos in every single video that I post, so it's super helpful. So if you want to check this out, I don't have an affiliate link. I don't really care if you buy it or not. It's just helpful. There's so many different websites out there. but this is the one that I use. So if you want to check it out, it's artlist.io. And I usually just use a sound effect in the beginning and for my transitions. Now the lens flare sound effect already is part of the video, so I actually don't need to add that. But I do want to add this whoosh sound effect in the very beginning. So if I go to my sound effects panel and I use flash whoosh in the beginning, this is for the zoom, right? So I'm going to put that there. Now I've gotten over 17. So boom, boom, like that. I've gotten over 17 million views using this Instagram algorithm trick, and I'm going to explain it to you. I think that looks pretty good. So we'll call that the finished product. I'm going to show you quickly the export settings that I use. So I go to File, Export Media. Now we did just edit our video in 4K, but we do need to export in 1080 because if you're using an iPhone, it's not going to let you save that video to your phone. Also, you should never post a video in 4K to Instagram because Instagram is going to compress it either way. Always edit and then compress it on the export in whatever video editing program that you have, because that's the best way to do it and save quality. So export in 1080. If you click the frame size right here and change it to 1080, it should automatically go to 1920. Make sure your frame rate matches your camera settings. I believe I recorded this in 30 frames a second because I remember going back into After Effects and seeing that I did record in 30 frames a second. So I'm going to change it to 2997 and then change the name of it here. So I'm going to put hi YouTube, and then everything else is the same. You just want to make sure also like your captions is turned on. If they are, let's go through your video and see if there's anything that you don't see that should be there. Captions is normally the biggest one. Like if I check that off, I'm going to have no captions. You won't. So we see that that's all good. I don't change anything else, and then I just export it to my computer, upload it to Dropbox, upload it to Instagram, and then all of the videos go out to the world. So if you found this tutorial super helpful, make sure to subscribe. Again, check out my entire video editing course. I release new videos to that course every week, so that link will be in the description below. I'm trying to speak, it's not coming out, but make sure you like and subscribe and share this video with a friend if you want to get better at video editing, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.